Allow me to convince you to start live streaming your podcasts. This video will give you two major takeaways that you can apply to your thought process if you're considering it. One, you'll hear from my friend Kyron, who has hands-on experience with live streaming multiple podcasts. And two, you'll hear about the tools to use and apps to stream to. The best way to get started is to check out Podhome, who is sponsoring this video and is also the most modern podcast hosting site. It's also something Kyron and I both use for both of our podcasts. Here's a clip of Kyron talking about why
podcasts are cool.
What were some key things for Podhome that made you interested in using it?
Yeah, I mean, the live streaming was a pretty big one, to be honest. The functionality of being able to do a live podcast on the podcasting apps has been around for, I want to say 2.5, maybe 3 years now. And it was really only in the last year that I've been able to utilize it. And this was just because the old host that I was with just didn't have the functionality. They hadn't built it into it. So yeah, when I saw Podhome had it and some of the other additional benefits of being able to have multiple podcasts all under the same plan, which is what I do. I have multiple podcasts. It was just like, all right, I'm willing to take a risk with this, even though it's, a new company, for example.
So when you're using Podhome to live stream the audio, right? You're only streaming audio. What apps is it going to, and how do you get it there? Like, what is like the step-by-step process to begin a live stream in Podhome and then to confirm that your show is actually being heard and listened?
So you need to have a broadcasting tool, which is essentially getting the audio from that you're speaking into and sending that to somewhere that Podhome can kind of capture that, and then it broadcasts it out using RSS through to these podcasting apps. So it's sort of just the additional step of when you've got your audio and you upload it to your podcasting host, and then it magically goes out. It's a similar sort of deal. You just have to add an extra layer onto it because you're doing it live and not just simply putting an MP3 file into a box on your podcasting host. So there's a couple of different tools that you can use for this. The one I use is called Butt, B-U-T-T, broadcast using this tool. Really simple interface. Podhome has basically instructions on how to use it. Copy this link, put it into this field, make sure that your audio, your mics are set to here, that your headphones are set to this, so you can kind of monitor the output. And yeah, then it's simple as clicking, the play button on that tool, and then the play button on Podhome, and bam, you're pretty much ready and rumbling. Obviously, also putting in some extra details of a schedule. We're going to be live here at this time. This is the name of the episode that we're going to call it. And then after the fact, you can either keep it or delete it. I typically delete it and then just upload a fresh copy. But I'm pretty sure you'll be able to use that audio in the future as well. There's also other ways you could do it, or other tools. I've used Rocket Broadcaster in the past. That was pretty good as well. I actually like the simplicity of Butt, B-U-T-T. But yeah, I think there's probably quite a few different ways you could go about doing it. Podhome has certainly made it easier than any of the other podcasting apps that I tried before.
So when you're live streaming through Podhome, you're not an Apple Podcast, you're not live streaming into Spotify. There's a whole other ecosystem of podcasting apps that is receiving your feed. Talk about that. Is that even important to even think about? Like, why should someone think that these new apps, these modern podcasting apps, modern podcast hosting services, why is it cool? Why is it important to even acknowledge these things?
The apps that it will go out onto that I know for sure are Fountain, Podcast Guru, Podverse, I believe Podfriend, Curiocaster, and if I'm missing any True Fans, and if I'm missing any others, apologies. I think I am, but those are the kind of main ones that I know of. So it's not just one place where you're forcing your audience to go to X app. It's you're kind of already saying like, hey, if you're uh, if you want to try out a different app or something, or if they're already using it, it'll show up in there. Obviously, I didn't mention the big ones there of Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and that's because they typically tend to lag in adopting these things because they're big companies and they take a while. So, in terms of the utility of perhaps someone who's got a really big podcast and they want the bulk of their audience to easily be able to access this, and they want them to be able to do it where they already are in Apple or Spotify. It's probably going to take a couple of years until those companies adopt these new things. The reason for doing it is, yeah, because perhaps you've got a show that you want to interact with your audience more, and perhaps you don't want to do it through video on YouTube. Plenty of people, I mean, that's kind of one of the boons of podcasting, right? It's an audio predominant thing. You can have video podcasts, but when people uh, talk about podcasts and they're using the technically correct definition of using it through RSS, the bulk of it is audio based. And so if you don't want to appear on camera, you don't have to. You can do it through these apps.
When it comes to the broadcasting thing, do these things cost money or how do you use them?
No, the ones that I used were just free downloads. So you just type in broadcast using this tool, and as a download it for Windows or Mac or whatever. Probably for someone new, the biggest thing would just be have the lowest of expectations for yourself. Be prepared for the live stream to cut out midway through. Be prepared for it you to have the audio quality wrong, and so that you will have essentially an unlistenable an episode that is just completely trash. Be prepared for your mistakes to be front and center, and be prepared just just for general chaos, which all the small mistakes that you would make whilst doing a normal podcast episode, but no one sees, i.e., forgetting to hit record. Everyone's done it.
Done that before.
Yeah, or having your mic muted and talking for 2 minutes without realizing that the other person on the other end isn't hearing you. Uh, all those sorts of things. Just be prepared for that. So I would say lower your expectations, especially as you're first starting.
The main thing I want to tell you is to not be afraid of experimenting with yourself. If you want to dive deeper on the topic, watch the entire episode I did with Kyron in my previously posted video. And to also check out Podhome, I have an affiliate link if you want to help me out like that. You can experiment with the 30-day free trial. Podhome has one tier that's $15.99 a month, and they give you unlimited shows, unlimited episodes, unlimited AI services. This is a new company that's really innovating, and I encourage you to dive deep and to see what they can give you. To wrap things up, I'll let Kyron tell you where you can follow him and where you can listen to more of his podcasts. Well, Kyron, thank you. The Mere Mortals podcast. When does it come out usually? How can people follow you and keep engaging with you?
Yeah, so there's I've got a couple of different ones. The Mere Mortals is the main one. I also hinted at the Mere Mortals book reviews, which I'm also doing. Probably the easiest way is just to go to meremortalspodcast.com. Follow us in one of those apps like Fountain, for example, where it shows the schedule that we're putting out. And I typically do that at least a couple of days beforehand. Also on the YouTube channel, it shows when we're going live next. So if you ever feel like joining in and seeing what all the stuff that I was describing, yeah, please do. And yeah, just Mere Mortals podcast is the way to find that.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Cole.